Okay, so the main thing yesterday was about using this new app called the TVM, Time Value of Money Solver. All right, and I gave this problem at the beginning of the hour. These numbers are totally wrong, so I'm going to change them to match now. Get this out of the way here. And I have a $20,000 loan. I hope you know that that is the present value. Is you have a $20,000 loan right now. What do you want the future to be? You want it to be paid off. 0. What's the payment? We'll solve for that later. We don't know. Next up, interest rate, 5%. That should be a 5. Number of payments. I said 5 years. If you put a 5 here, you lose. If you put a 5 times 12, then you win. There. 60 months, 5%, $20,000. The payment, -800, no. But I'm going to change that by doing alpha solve. Oh, wait, and one more thing. End or beginning. I'm going to tell you that your calculator's default, like the one that they decided, TI has to make all these decisions, they think that that's more common. All right, I personally can give you one example of a time when end of the month was the logical thing for a home loan. After you've paid your stuff up front, and the loan originates, it is true that usually they'll let you do it at the end of the first month. And I talked to somebody who just did a refi, or they actually changed houses, so they bought a different house. Yes, it was end of the month. So we're going to go with end. Again, you could argue that, but the answers that are going to be on the keys are going to be based on end versus beginning of month. Do you get that's only 30 days difference? But this is all about time value of money. And a little thing like getting your money into your account, like if it's an investment, 30 days earlier means you're going to get more growth on it. So there is a time value of money. If you're going to say, hey, you borrowed 30 bucks from me yesterday, can you give me the money right now? Of course, that's what you want. You want your money now. And your friend says, oh, I'll give it to you in 30 days. You're kind of like, that sucks. You know what I mean? Like, I should have it now because there's a time value of money. All right, that's what the TVM solver is good at. Now I'm going to go up to the payment. I'm going to hit alpha solve, and you should have said $377.42. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Okay, good. Now, here's a tougher question. How much are you actually going to pay for this $20,000 item? You would think you'd pay $20,000, but that's not actually how much you're going to pay. Some of you are typing already, which is good. What are you multiplying here? The payments, which are 377.42, times what? Yes, times 60. You got 60 payments. We know that because it says that at the top. So take 60 times 377.42. 60. I'm going to clear this first. 60 times 377.42. I said it out loud so that it would help me to remember it. You get like a 7-second recall of things you just said in the last 7 seconds. They're all really fresh in your mind. So anyway, $22,645. Do you get how, if I needed to know how much interest did you pay, I would take that and then take away the original $20,000 I was supposed to be borrowing? Because that's how much I actually paid. What I wanted to pay was $20,000. So that's how much interest there was, $2,645 of interest. If you really like this kind of stuff, then you might be interested in being a banker, because this is what they do. This is finance. If you like this on a higher level, like I like to know about stocks and bonds and investments, then there's again a degree for you called finance. You can get a major in business with an emphasis in finance, or even a finance major. So, okay, so how could we make this any more difficult? Well, basically, the problems for today aren't going to get much more difficult than we've already done. But there's enough twists and turns to make it challenging. There's one twist that goes like this. You're either going to take this loan out, which we just did, a loan, $20,000 loan, let's say it was for a car. That's a typical amount you borrow to get a car, okay? And you're either going to do that, or you're going to save up the money to buy the car. Do you get if you save up the money, you won't have to pay interest. You won't have to pay $2,645 of interest. That's a good thing, right? There are going to be people who are going to say, I don't want to pay $2,000 of interest. I can wait to buy that car because they got a car that works. It might be old and smelly, but you know, I got a college kid that I know that spilled some milk in his car. It's really bad after a while because that's like the worst thing you can smell other than gasoline. I did that once. Man, gasoline smells just lasts forever. I had put a gas tank in my car, like for the lawnmower, and it tipped over, and it didn't dump the whole thing, but it like some, and then, oh, gas smell and milk smell are like the worst. Although I do know there was a guy at my, he was a youth pastor, and the kids thought it'd be funny to make his car smell, so they put Limburger cheese. If you've ever tried Limburger, it is the worst smelling cheese ever. They put Limburger cheese all over his car and in his car, and it stuck in the upholstery smell, and oh my gosh, this car smelled forever, like terribleness and death. Okay, so anyway, this is if you want to take the loan. What would we do if we wanted to save for the car? Let's go back to the TVM solver and talk about what would we do if we wanted to save up $20,000 to buy the car. All right, so I'm going to go into the TVM solver. Again, it's under Apps, Finance, TVM solver. Now, if we're saving up for the car, one of the weird things is we don't know how many months it's going to take us to save up for it. So I'm going to put in just a placeholder of a 1. If I remember right, I don't think it likes you to put in a 0 there. Well, I guess it'll let me put 0. It's just a placeholder. I'm going to go back and solve for the months later. That implies I know everything else. Let's say that instead of paying 5% interest, I'm earning interest. And I'm going to use the number that we use for the project. We use 3%. Why? Because we thought it's not realistic to say you're going to put all your money in the stock market for just like a year while you're trying to buy this car, because that's dangerous, because the stock market goes up and down a lot. Like even yesterday the stock market was up 500 points and then went all the way down to down at the end of the day. Like it's just really violently up and down lately. And so you don't really want to invest for something that you need the money for like pretty soon, like to buy this car. It's dangerous to put that kind of money in the stock market. If you're going to invest over the long haul, then it doesn't matter that much if it goes up or down because you're just going to leave it in that account. See what I mean? So it's if you are going to invest it, what real world investment people would say is maybe you put some of it in stocks, but a lot of it should just go in the bank because that's safe. If you need it soon, you can't afford to take the risk of putting it in the stock market because like literally today, I'm going to even make this prediction on the video. First of all, I should say I have no idea where the stock market is going for sure. But I'm going to guess that between now and the end of the school year, it's going to go down another 10%. I don't know that. If I could know that, people would pay me literally millions of dollars for predictions like that. If you knew for sure, that would be worth millions. But my gut says that it's going to go down more. It's gone down 10%. I think it's going to go down at least another 10% between now and the end of the school year. Okay? So my point is, if you're saving for a car, it would really suck to put your money in there and have it go down. It's like, I'm trying to save up for a car and it went down 20%. $1,000 goes down to $800. Ouch. You know what I mean? So we are saying 3% interest because that's sort of like half of it in the bank and half of it in stocks to sort of like average it out and say it's sort of more safe that way. I totally get you could punch holes in that argument. We had to have a number, so we went with 3 because this is a short-term investment thing. All right. And we know the present value is a $20,000 loan, but we're trying to save up for $20,000. So at the present time, do we have $20,000? No. Let's just assume for a moment we have $1,000, and this is going to get weird. I'm going to say negative $1,000. Why? Because I need to take out of my normal money, my normal finances, my normal bank account. I'm going to start setting aside in a separate account money to save for this car. So it's going to come out of my normal money. So I'm going to call it minus $1,000 from my bank account. over into this separate save for my car account. Okay. Then my payments are also going to be going from my normal account into this save up for the car account. Let's say the most I can save up is $800 a month. Then go negative 800 again. Why negative? Because it's going to come out of my normal money I make every month, and it's going to go into this special place, this special car savings account. That's why they're negative. All right, what do I want the future value of this to be? 20,000. I'm starting with 1,000 I've already got saved up. I'm making payments of $800 a month. Then my future value needs to be at 20 grand so that I can buy the car. And remember, we're going to use our payments at the end of the month just because that's what the calculator defaults to, and that's what was used for the key. Okay. What's the one thing I haven't figured out yet? The number of months. I need to know how many months it's going to take me to save for this car. I know it's going to save me money, but it's going to take me a while. All right, so I'm going to go alpha solve. I'll have to save for 23 months. That's almost 2 years that I'm going to have to drive my old crappy car that smells like milk. And I will eventually have enough to saved up to buy this car. But do you get by doing this, I don't have to pay that interest? In fact, here's a mind blower for you. It doesn't even cost me $20,000 then. How is that possible? Well, take the payments we did, which is $800 payments, times 23 of them. 800 times 23. But, there's one, it's a big but. I did start with 1,000, so it also costs me that, right? I had 1,000 in the account right away, so then I'm going to add another 1,000 to it that I just stuck in on day one. So it actually only cost me 19,400. You see what I'm saying? So by being patient, how much did you save? $600 plus I didn't have to pay any interest. See what I mean? So I almost saved $3,000. Now, for a lot of people, they're going to say, I know I could save $3,000 by doing it that way, but I don't want to wait 2 years to get the car. That's totally cool, and it's your life, and you get to decide that. You know what I mean? That's part of what's good about this is a free country. Nobody's going to say you have to do it this way. I had to, as a young teacher, I had to be really careful with money. When I first started teaching here in Minnetonka, my first salary was around $24,000, a little less, $24,000 a year. And I had a wife, and I had a kid, at least one. I think I had one kid. So then, all of a sudden, we were poor enough to qualify for food stamps. Okay, we were not making much money. So I didn't want to go borrow a whole bunch of money and buy a car. So I just kept driving this old car. I still remember what it was. It was a Chevy Citation. Okay, wonderful in that it was cheap, but terrible old car. And my grandpa had actually owned it a long time before that, and he gave it to my parents, who then gave it to me, and it was just basically this old crappy car. But I got by with it for a couple of years because I didn't want to have to pay a whole bunch of money on interest. I couldn't afford it. Again, I qualified for food stamps. So instead, though, I did save money. I actually put money into my IRA that very first year. I was proud of that because I knew that saving for the long run would be a big deal. That would really help. I wanted to use interest on my side instead of being used by it. So you get to pick, though. I could have, if I wanted to, gone to the car dealership and said, you know, tell me what I can get a loan for here because I want to get a nicer car because I'm a brand new teacher and I don't want to look bad driving this crappy old car to work. I don't think anybody really cares what the cars look like, you know, so it doesn't matter to me. I get it, though. If you're like a real estate agent, for instance, and you're driving people around in a crappy old car, they're going to be like, what, you know, how successful are you if you're driving me around in a crappy old car? There are some jobs where you need a good car. I couldn't have done that if I was a real estate agent. But as a teacher, nobody cared what my car looked like when I drive in the morning. All right, so this way of doing it, obviously you didn't spend 20 grand. You only spent 19.4. But you did have to give some time up. You had to wait for your car. All right, and then you get your car. Okay, so what's the difference? 19,400 price, versus the other price we had, I think it's still on the screen here, 2264, right? So there's our actual two comparison numbers, and you would subtract those two, and you could find out what's the difference between the one way and the other way. That's the hardest problem we have. Okay, so if you can handle that, how much would it cost you to buy the car with a loan? How much would it have cost you if you had saved up the money? If you can do that, then you're done. And the only thing you have to do is do a project about it. I'm going to officially introduce the project tomorrow, and then you're going to start getting time to work on it tomorrow. And then next week, you're going to have more time to work on that project, and then you turn it in like Wednesday was when we first start taking the first few people's finished projects. This project will count as a test. Okay, so it counts in the 85% category. So you don't want to just slap it together really quick and then get it over with, get it done. You want to be really careful and do a good job because it's going to count just as much as any of your other tests. And on the downside to this project, you can't do a retake of the project and just do the project over again and get an A on it. Okay, this one is, you get one long, plenty of time chance to do this, but then it's done. This one does not have a retake on it. So be careful. Yes? A Roth IRA is a way to have an investment, and then you get to decide how fast it grows or shrinks by what you invest in. You can totally invest that. I have a Roth, and the other day I bought a penny stock, which is very dangerous. But it was selling for 42 cents a share, and you can, for instance, buy things like that are very volatile. So it could double in value like by next week, or it could go down to half as much. I'm trying to be real with you guys about, I am not any kind of a genius on finance or predicting the future. That's the main thing I'm terrible at. Okay, if I knew what Apple was going to do by the end of next year, I could make tons of money by either buying Apple or by buying against Apple. It's called shorting Apple. But I thought this seemed like a good buy because the stock was on a tear. It was up to 42 cents a share, and I think you can tell by the way I'm saying this, I bought at the worst possible moment. Like, I bought it the day that it started turning around and going down again. I thought, oh, cool, I actually got it for 41 cents a share. I was like, I got it cheaper than, because it was up to 42, and I got it like a penny off. Sweet. Because I was picturing it going up to 80, and being really happy about how I doubled my money. Yeah. It went from 42 cents a share back down to where it had been hovering before, which is around 23 cents a share. What does that mean? Basically, I cut my money in half. Yay. Like, that literally happened a couple weeks ago. Okay. Well, when it went back down to 23 cents, I decided, you know what? I still believe that this company has potential. I think this is not that bad of a time to buy. And it reached what it's called its resistance level. As in, this was the level that it had been at before it made its run. And it was likely to be pretty safe down there at 23 cents a share. So I bought some more at 23 cents a share. And literally yesterday, it went up 25%. So that means it went up somewhere in here. So I was happy for the money I just bought it for there. Still sad about spending the money there. Wish I would have just waited a few weeks and then got it all right here. Then I'd feel like a genius. I was up 25%. You know what I mean? So, but right now, net, I'm at a loss because I bought up here and I bought down here, which means on average I bought somewhere in there. I'm still at a loss, but at least it's heading in the right direction. Do you get if it ever gets back to what I paid for it at 42 cents? Then if I sell, some of my money will just break even, but some of my money will have gone from here to here. See what I mean? All right, so that's typical stock investing. You asked, what can I buy with a Roth? That's what you could do. You could buy penny stocks. Now, am I suggesting that's a good idea? It depends on you. If you have a high risk tolerance, if you can live with, I put in 1,000 and now it's down to 500. But I can live with that because it was a risk I was willing to take. Some people are okay with that. They have high risk tolerance. I have a fairly high risk tolerance. Okay. Other people are like, I have, I'm just going to say one of my daughters anyway, is like, hates the idea of losing money, is willing to take far less risk because she's like, if it goes down, I am really going to be cranky. If it doesn't go up that much, I don't care that much, but it better not go down. Well, then you have to take much more careful investments, which means you don't have a chance of it spiking, right? If you buy a really careful investment, it might only go up 10%. But then maybe the worst case scenario is it goes down 10%, because there's a principle of risk and reward. If you take higher risk, you can get higher reward, or you can also get a higher loss too. Okay, enough about that. I know some people care about it and some people don't. So if you have more questions about that, talk to me later after class. And if you ask me where this stock is in another few weeks, I'll tell you. I'll tell you if it's gone back up again or if maybe it's gone down and hovered at that 23. That's a very likely possibility. It was at 23 for a long time. It might go right back down there. But their stock actually is theoretically going to make a better battery than the lithium ion. The company is trying to replace lithium ions with a next generation battery, and they say they've got the technology to do it. If they do, that'll be a big deal, because all your phones, lithium ion batteries. All the cars on the road that are right now, like the electric cars, lithium ion batteries. So if this is better than that, that's going to be a big deal. All right, so let's do one more of those scenarios where we start with a loan and we see how much would it have been if we had saved for it versus doing the loan. So get into the TVM solver again. And this time, change the numbers accordingly. We're going to have, let's see, what's something that has a fairly long-term loan? But okay, if we do a house, you really can't save for a house unless you're going to save for like 40 years. You know what I mean? Like, who's going to want to wait their whole life and then finally buy the house? Okay. Okay, a motorcycle. Motorcycle's it. And how much is this motorcycle? $35,000. Holy crap, that is a really expensive motorcycle. Okay. Now, I'm not saying there aren't. There are definitely ones out there. But it's going to take us a long time to save for. Oh, how about this? We'll say that it's an expensive motorcycle, but you're also pretty wealthy. All right, so we're going to have a $35,000 loan. Everybody change the calculator accordingly for a $35,000 loan. You've got good credit, so we will say that they're going to give you a 4% loan rate. 4%, $35,000 cycle, and we're borrowing all the money for it, for this first scenario. Now, in a typical loan for a motorcycle, that's going to be a 7-year loan. I just told you something you can put in. 7-year loan for a motorcycle. You could do it on a 5, but a lot of times it'd be a 7. All right, then present value is you're borrowing $35,000. Now, why am I making that positive? Because that money is going to come into my checking account. I didn't have it before. It's going to be positive to me. You know what I'm saying? It's coming into my account. All right. How about the payments? I don't know that. I'll figure that out. I'm going to put a 0 for now. And future value, I want that to be 0 because I want it to be paid off someday. All right. Now, I know my interest rate, and I said 7 years, so we're going to go 7 times 12. Do you get the only thing I don't know is the payment? Then go right here to the payment and go alpha solve. $478 a month if I go this route. Okay. All right. Now, how do you use this to get how much total did you pay? Take a moment, use the numbers that are on the screen here to figure out how much total did you pay. Hint, it has to do with how many payments you made. And let's round it to 478.41. We'll always go to the penny. That's what the Schoology document's going to do too. Go to the penny. 478.41. Times, how many payments do we have? And can you save me some time and tell me what that is? 40, 180 point, how much pennies? Do I have it right now? 186 point. Thank you. Okay, good. So then, do you get, I thought I was paying 35 for the cycle, but I'm actually paying 40? This is not something that the loan companies tell you, by the way. They just let you pay it off and pay it off and pay it off, and then you're all of a sudden, finally, you're like, finally, I'm done paying it off. They will never tell you, hey, by the way, you actually paid $40,186. Do you get that's bad marketing for them to do that? Because it doesn't make you think about taking the loan next time. You're like, I don't want to take another loan because that cost me way more. We showed you on a house the other day that it cost you an extra $186,000 just for the interest. Nobody says, well, what I actually paid for my house was this. They say, well, I bought it for this much. And you just sort of ignore the fact that you paid all that interest. Banks like that because they want you to not worry about all that interest. And again, it's nothing wrong with banks. Banks need to make money, and I'm glad we have banks. Otherwise, people wouldn't be able to buy houses until they were like 50 years old. And there would be a lot of things that we couldn't have in this country if we didn't have banks that were willing to loan out money. But they do make a lot of money in interest. So how much did they make in interest? That would be another question. And you'd subtract off the 35. Somebody with fast fingers, I'm thinking that this is $5,000 in interest that you paid to get that cycle. Could you have got the cycle if you had saved up and waited? Yes. And again, I totally get, for a lot of people, they're going to be like, I want the cycle now. I don't want to wait 3 years to get this cycle. As long as you understand that you're paying extra, the only question would be, how much extra are you paying? Well, I know this much. You will save $5,000 in interest because you won't have to pay interest. Right? All right, let's do the rest of this scenario, which is, that's how much if we do it with a loan. Now let's do it with saving. Okay, go back on this same screen, and let's go with the same assumptions that we were going to make before of a 3% payment. But remember I said it was okay to buy this fancy cycle because you're fairly wealthy. So let's say that you have $5,000 already saved up for it. So I want to put -5 because why? Because I'm setting aside in a separate account. And my payments, again, I think we're doing the scenario that you're a fairly wealthy guy. You can save $1,000 a month towards this cycle if you want to. Okay? Future value, we needed to go up to $35,000 to buy this cycle. If you want to include everything in the real world, we'd have to also include that the cycle goes up in cost. Think about it. The brand new cycle was, well, unless you want to buy the same year and it's getting old, but if you want to buy a new one, the price goes up a little bit every year, so it might actually be like 37. But we're not going to get that complicated. We'll just say it's 35. Just trying to acknowledge in the real world, if we wait a couple of years, the cycle probably costs more than 35,000. All right. Then this is the thing we solve for, which is how long will it take? So we go alpha solve, and it takes 28 months. All right. So then we're going to say 28.6 months. We're going to round that. Why not even round to the penny also? 28.62. I know there's no such thing as penny months, but we'll round to the same hundredths place. 28.62 times 1,000. Plus, I'd already saved up 5,000. I don't know if you remember that, but that was our present value. Then our cycle cost us $33,620 compared to the cost, including interest, was 40. Is that a big difference? It's a fairly big difference. I'm going to take 40,186 and subtract 33, what was that number before? 33,620. I'm going to subtract those two. Has somebody already, if you got fast fingers, tell me what it is. What do you got?
10,566.
Uh-oh. Did you try it?
Yeah.
And you got the same number?
No.
Okay. What did you get for a number?
I got $6,566.40.
That feels a little more correct. These two subtracted, I'm going to say should be about 6,000 difference. So yeah, okay. 6,000 what? All right. Do you get that for a lot of people, it's just worth it to pay and get the cycle now? Because you're going to have to wait a lot of months. How many months was that? 28 months. That's over 2 years. But if you can wait 2 years, you will save $6,000. That's a fair amount of cash. Just for perspective, that's enough cash to take you and your wife to Hawaii for a trip to Hawaii. And you still get to have your cycle. You don't have a wife anyway, so it doesn't matter. Okay, anyway, whatever. So fine, you can take yourself on a 3-week trip to Hawaii. Just you and your wife. No, you and your not wife. Anyway, just you and your bike. Actually, it's really expensive to get your bike to Hawaii. So, all right. Anyway. Ooh, harsh. Okay. So, today's lesson was about comparing saving for something and earning interest. We say it's 3% because we don't want to be overly unrealistic. Like, I'm going to buy Bitcoin and it's going to double. Okay, great. If that happens, lucky you, but you can't count on that. Okay. And then how much if we just borrow the money to get it? And there's nothing wrong with borrowing money. I want to leave one last thing in there. I am not against borrowing, but I am against borrowing if you're buying something you don't need. Okay, like, because that's just really financially going to hurt you if you borrow money to buy stuff you don't really need. And number two, I'm just going to say there are 2 types of borrowing that are generally considered okay. One is for college because it's going to make you more money in the end because you'll make more money if you have a college education. And for buying a house, just because most people, when you buy your house, it goes up in value. So it's okay to borrow to get it because when it's all done, the house is worth even more than when you bought it in the first place. So there's 2 times that borrowing is the best. One's for college and one, and on the college one, I want to also add in, don't borrow too much because sometimes people borrow way more than they have to, and they don't even pay attention because they heard college borrowing is good. I'm going to say college borrowing is good to a certain point. If you get a ton of debt, it's very painful when you graduate to have all this debt to have to pay back. Maybe you need to borrow some, but try not to borrow much. Yes? Good question on starting the business. That absolutely can be a good loan. Absolutely. Then, of course, it all depends on the business. Because 95% of small businesses either don't make any money or go out of business within 5 years. 95%. So, depends. Depends on the business. You know what I mean? There's plenty of business ideas that have gone gangbusters and it was genius to borrow the money. And then there's other businesses that have, seemed like a great idea and then just fizzled. And there's even big famous ones where they were in business just a few years ago and they're totally bankrupt now. So it happens to businesses. So I can't guarantee on the business one, it could be a genius idea or it could be a terrible idea. It depends on the business. Okay, enough about that. Your homework for tonight is a Schoology quiz, and I'll help you start working through it. I think you'll find it's just like what we just talked about. You're going to need that TVM solver. I'm going to pause for a moment while we pull that up. So here's the Schoology quiz and the first problem thereof. The following equation represents a financial situation. Right away, I know that they either borrowed or invested $500, right? I also know that they had 4% interest, that they're not paying monthly this time. What are they paying? You know what the name for that is? Quarterly. And that's a payment on what's that tell me? Loan. It's a loan of $500 and they're paying $25 a month. And for the kids that are like, should I say it's positive or negative 25? The answer in this case is it's positive 25 because the minus is already here in the problem. I know you have a minus 25, but when you're answering the Schoology quiz, put in positive 25 there. The interest, I double checked. I checked the key to make sure that's right advice. The interest rate is 4. Do not put 0.04. Don't put 0.04. Put 4. Okay. Next, the principal, 500. You can put a dollar sign, but I'd recommend just not. Saves you time, and the key will always take it without the dollar sign. Okay. Next up, the frequency. That's how often? 4 times. It's compounded, and that's how often you pay a year. And the last thing, is this a loan or an investment? This was a loan. Is all that making sense to you? All right. So the tougher ones are later. And make sure that your calculator is in the mode on the TVM solver part where it's got the end highlighted right here. Otherwise, that could really goof you up. Yes, in the back corner. Back middle. Yes, absolutely. Yes. I'm pretty sure you can, but let's check. I'm going to pause for a second while we check this key. Okay. Remember, you can take this thing twice. Remember, especially this time, I'm going to accept fairly low scores for a full credit. Why? Because it's so short. Do you get if there's only like 8 questions, you get 1 wrong, that's technically an 80%. Okay, so I'll take a fairly low score as a full credit on this one because it's so short. Because I get that if you get 2 wrong out of 8, that's actually, you know, what is that? A 6 out of 8, that's a 75%. And only 2 wrong, that's pretty harsh. So I'd probably take 3 wrong on this one for a full credit, as in a 100% score in the gradebook. So don't worry if the only thing I'm doing wrong is I typed it wrong, different than Schoology. I'm going to be giving you all the way up to 100% on it as long as your score isn't bad. The other reason I'm doing that today especially is because there's an extra credit question in here, but yet it thinks it's a regular question. So again, try it. Try getting that answer, but if you get it wrong, I'm being especially generous on today's Schoology quiz scores. As long as you have a decent score, you're going to get full credit. Okay, that's all I got for you for